The agency has an excellent reputation. When we say we're going to do something, we do it. Now we deliver Meals on Wheels to the older folks and to their
That's
pets.
amazing. That's great.
And
yeah.
it really is amazing.
How many programs do you have?
Right now we have about 27. It's 6 different areas. So family support, health and wellness, senior services, substance abuse prevention, reentry and restorative justice, and then, of course, our housing programs.
Welcome to TLC Connections, the podcast where educators, counselors, coaches, and community leaders come together to inspire change, one connection at a time.
Welcome to TLC Connections. My name's Julie Knutson. I'm the Director of Development. I'll be your host today, and I want to welcome Kelly Canally here, who is the Executive Director of Family Service. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us today. So if you could tell us a little bit about your career path and your time with Family Service as you celebrate a tremendous milestone.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yes, Family Service is celebrating 125 years of service to Montgomery County. So the original precursor of the agency started back in 1900 in Pottstown, and through a series of mergers and acquisitions, Family Service of Montgomery County was created back in the early 1970s. And we've been serving the community ever since. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share our journey and our history and where we are now and what we hope to be in the future.
I'm excited to hear more about that. And if you could share your part of the journey, clearly you haven't been around 125 years, but you've been with them.
Some days it feels like that, right?
I know you've been there a long time.
Yes, I've been with Family Services for 30 years. So I joined as a student intern back in 1994. And then became part of the staff in 1995. So started out early on, a lot of work in primary prevention programs. So helping families around family strengthening, really to prevent problem behaviors from beginning in the first place. The county was really struggling with issues around early substance use and juvenile delinquency. And for the FAST program, which is Families and Schools Together, was a program that was designed to help families become kind of that first primary prevention agent for their children. So a lot of family work, a lot of family strengthening, just communication and helping to foster those. So that was my entry into Family Services. And since then, it's evolved over the time, Director of Programs and Services, and now in the last 3.5 years as Executive Director. So,
congratulations with that.
Thank you.
What has kept you for 30 years? I mean, that's quite a career.
I would say it really is. There's always something new. There's always something different at the agency. We definitely pride ourselves on, changing our scope of work, changing programs and services to really match what the community needs at the time. So there's always something different, whether it's, and 3-4 years ago, we weren't doing reentry work. Now we're doing a lot of work around helping those leaving the correctional facility to reengage and be successful and reduce their risk factors for recidivism. So that's just one example, of something we didn't do 5 years ago, and now we do. So I would say for me, it's that constant new things, new opportunities, new ways in which to grow and to serve the community. And it's just been rewarding over time. It's also a great place to work.
Mm-hmm.
We have a wonderful staff.
I know people have been there for a while.
People have
stay.
been there a long time. So I am not the only one with 30 years. We have, a lot of other long-term employees. And it's great because they get to know, over 30 years, you get to know what worked, what didn't, what went well, what are the pitfalls, what are the successes, and what do we need to kind of change up to be more responsive in the future.
When you talked about the reentry, I'm just curious, how do you pivot? Again, how do you sustain for all these years? How are you getting a pulse on things?
I think the main thing that I have found over my years in the common connection with all the programs and services that we do, because we are a comprehensive human service agency, we pretty much serve everyone from prenatal to end-of-life issues with our senior services and in-home counseling. So with that, it's just really changing it up, keeping an eye on what the pulse of the community is. What are the changing needs? We look at a lot of data, so we look at a lot of community needs assessments that come out from some of the local foundations. We look at our Pennsylvania Youth Survey. Just what are the kids, what are the families, what are these needs assessments telling us in terms of what the needs are right here in Montgomery County.
Are they programs grant funded? Is that mostly how you sustain your programs? Or?
It's really a range. So we have a number of county contracts. So that's contracts with Montgomery County for things like senior services, substance abuse prevention. They're mainly the two, our child welfare programs. We also do have contracts with Montgomery County. Grants ebb and flow, and I'm sure any nonprofit can definitely tell you that. There's times when state and federal grants are readily available. There's times when those funding streams dry up and you kind of have to pivot and do something different. So we really do try to keep a pretty good mix of funding sources, both between government funding sources as well as private foundations. Private foundations, in my experience, it used to be all I did was grant writing for probably about 15, 20 years of my time with the agency. Those opportunities are fewer and far between. You know, we used to have a success rate of about 65, 70% when we would write a grant application. And right now, it really is about 35%. It's definitely much more challenging, and the opportunities are fewer. So I think that's definitely a challenge facing nonprofits. The key is partnerships. The key is collaborations, relationships with other providers, other systems in the county. So with our reentry work, it was really understanding what the Montgomery County Correctional Facility was facing in terms of their challenges with recidivism and people returning, what Montgomery County probation, adult probation's issues have been in terms of what they're struggling with and the caseload numbers, and really getting together with them and having that conversation of what do we need? What do we need to do differently in order to serve people, in order to make sure that people are successful upon reentry, and most importantly, that they reduce the risk factors for returning to jail.
So just to back that up a little, how did you even partner? How did you even get involved in this space?
It really is. Our staff are very involved in a lot of the collaboratives through the county, and that's definitely something that we encourage, that everybody be involved in some type of community initiative, which years ago were much more plentiful. Since COVID, unfortunately, those opportunities don't exist as widely as they did before. So it really is ensuring that our managers and our staff are getting out and doing that outreach in the community and getting to know who are our partners.
And getting a pulse then where the needs are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And really being proactive about building those partnerships and those connections and having that understanding of how is the landscape changing? How are the needs changing? And how does the agency need to change to respond to that?
So that's a lot of pressure in a way, always looking ahead,
It's always
right?
looking ahead. We always ask, and even when we do our strategic planning, we're always planning for 3-4 years in advance. So what do we anticipate those changes that are on the horizon? What do we anticipate in terms of the funding opportunities or funding limitations, as the case might be? And how do we need to change in order to be able to continue to serve? And the agency has fluctuated in size over the years. I mean, we ebb and flow in terms of number of staff and number of programs, and it really is just a matter of shifting and planning with the landscape and the environment.
Yeah, I mean, tell me how you guys survived COVID. Seriously, I mean, talk about, you weren't prepared for that, and so many people went under.
We weren't prepared, and so many did. We really had a commitment, and all of our work is client-centered. We were out of the office, and I know some agencies remained remote for years. Some still are. We were out about 2 months just to revamp. Staff worked remotely for a couple of months till we were able to bring staff back safely, rotating in person and remote, and just making sure that we had a safe environment for staff, but that we were also still accessible, still seeing our clients, whether that meant meeting them on the porch, meeting them outside at a park, but maintaining that face-to-face, because social isolation was such a big issue for so many folks, especially our seniors. And one of the things that we really are most proud of is our Meals on Wheels program, which has been in Pottstown for 55 years, has never missed a day. So even through COVID, our volunteers, who are phenomenal, they got their masks, they got their gloves, they picked up their food, and they would leave it outside and speak with the older adult with some distance, but they never missed a day.
And then you actually, I want to say capitalize, but in a way, didn't you do something with like rent assistance or?
We did. So we were part of the the federal COVID response emergency rent utility assistance with Montgomery County Your Way Home. So they had set up a coalition. It was the Emergency Rent Utility Coalition, which was 6 agencies. We were one of the 6. But that initiative rolled out about over $100 million in emergency rent assistance for households who had lost income due to the pandemic. So as we know, there were many layoffs. There were many folks that were not able to go in and perform their job. This was really a stopgap for many to prevent evictions and to prevent a greater increase in our homeless numbers.
So you were able to, quote, get a seat at the table by your partnerships, by participating in collaboratives, having a pulse of what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think over the years, I would like to think, and I would hope that others would agree, that the agency has an excellent reputation. When we say we're going to do something, we do it. And all of our staff know that. One of the expectations is follow through. And I think, and especially with, reentry and Project Hope and a number of our programs, the staff are committed. And I always say the staff that are most successful at the agency is those that have a passion for the work. 40% of it, we can train people all day. We can give them the skills. We can give them 60% of it is, do you have a passion for working with the populations that we serve? And I think that makes us successful.
So where do you attribute your passion?
My passion coming into the work was always for in just ensuring that children had a brighter future. My first work in the field was in child abuse investigations and case management.
Prior to family service.
Prior to family services. So I was with the county and really saw, the devastation and the trauma that kids endured through child abuse. And my passion was always wanting to get in to prevent that from happening, so that more children were not exposed to that kind of violence, that their families had the support and the strength to reduce their stress, to know who to reach out to if they have a problem or a challenge, or so many of it was really from environmental factors, loss of employment, family stress, substance use, things that were preventable. So that really is what got me really involved in this idea of, primary prevention and trying to prevent problems before they blossom and take a toll on the individual, the family, and then ultimately the community.
And so when did the transition away from direct service? I mean, ultimately now, 30 years ago, would you have seen yourself as executive director?
No, it's not something I wanted. It was something that I was very surprised when our last executive director met with me about 5 years ago and told me he was thinking of retiring. I thought I had about 5 more years to get ready for that. But it's a shift. I'm not doing the fun stuff anymore. I don't have to do the grants anymore. And
That's fun stuff
that's
for you?
fun. It was
Okay.
fun for me. Someone else may not
Yeah.
agree. But that was the fun stuff, the programming, the program development, the just the day-to-day in working with the clients and working with the staff around that. Now I'm doing parking lot plans and construction projects and retirement plan revamps, and so it's different, but the 30 years I figure has kind of brought me to this. But what I do bring to it, and I think the staff appreciate, is it's not someone from the outside who doesn't have that direct service experience. I know exactly what the challenges are, what they're going through, and that the trauma and work and the stress of working with those we serve are a burden and wear on them as well. So that burnout factor is real. And it's a matter of, for me and my perspective in the last 3.5 years, is how do we combat that? How do we put other more positive kinds of things in place for staff to kind of balance that out?
So you've recognized some challenges, obviously. Are there some that you didn't expect, some unanticipated challenges you've come up against?
The sustainability is, there's always something new and different and something on the horizon that's impacting a funding source or a program or our ability to sustain something. And it just calls for a lot of creativity on a regular basis.
Tremendous resiliency. You think on one hand, a lot of pressure for an organization that's been around to sustain that, but the optimism or the demonstration that you'll do it.
We'll do it. Yeah. We'll do it because we have to do it. We're one of the larger social service agencies in the county, maybe not one of the larger nonprofits, but certainly one of the larger social service agencies. I always think about, and even with the funding issues that are before us now, so, we did get the letter from the state yesterday that, it's the state budget's still being hashed out. A lot of the funding is being held up for July and August in particular this year. Probably reimbursement will not be forthcoming for a number of the services we provide in a variety of different areas. It always worries me. We're large. Mm-hmm. We do have some resources available to us that our past executive director was a business person and a finance person. He has left. He has handed me over a well-run and a ship that is in very good shape, which was certainly a benefit. And we can weather these kinds of storms in terms of financial downfalls. I'm concerned about the smaller nonprofits that don't have that ability, because I don't know how they go without being paid for 2-3 months at a time when they have to pay staff and benefits and all the things. So I'm in a fortunate position. But those smaller ones I'm concerned about, and they're the ones that, we worry because they are part of our safety net. They're part of the community. People depend on them. I don't know how they go about, getting through these difficult times.
So what are some other highlights over the 30 years that you're really proud of?
There's just so many, not just last June. It was our youth aid panel case management program. Charla Davalia, one of our youth aid panel case managers, just had a beautiful story about, a young man who she had helped, whose father was incarcerated on a life sentence, issues at home. He planned to drop out. He didn't plan to go any further. But she has such a way with case management, as a number of our people do, that she was able to get him to refocus, get him to graduation. He's thinking of joining the military. He's had some conversations, and he's just in such a great. So I think there's big wins, like the Montgomery County reentry initiative, getting that started, going to a meeting where 87 organizations and individuals are showing up on a quarterly basis to help plan for helping people return in the community be successful. that for me is something beautiful to see, where 5 years ago there was nothing, and then the individual wins, or a senior, we have a pet program, and they just sent me a picture last week of one of our older ladies. So we now can actually deliver Meals on Wheels to the pets of
What's
our...
the pet program? To feed pets?
To feed the pets of our homebound Meals on Wheels seniors. So many of them are low income and feel they have to give their pets up because they don't have the resources to keep them at home. So we brought the pet program in, which is a companion program to our Meals on Wheels program. So now we deliver Meals on Wheels to the older folks and to their
That's
pets.
amazing. That's great.
And
yeah.
it really is amazing. And there was one I had seen, and the older woman was 87. She was able to keep her cat for the last number of years. She thought she was going to have to let him go because she didn't have the resources to keep buying the dry food and the wet food and the litter and we were able to get a number of grants and are able to help them sustain their pets with them at home. And for many of them, it's their only companion.
That's a great program. Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that. And could you just expand a little bit too on the youth aid panel? I know what that is, but that's a wonderful program.
Youth aid panel is out of the Montgomery County District Attorney's office. So Kevin Steele's office. It's a phenomenal program. It's a diversion program for youth who have a minor offense. So it used to be only a first offense, and now they were able to expand the criteria that the young person could have a few, very minimal, low-level offenses. And it's a diversion program. So instead of traditionally before those kids would have gone into the juvenile justice system, they would have gone before the district court and have a criminal record. So Youth Aid Panel gives those kids an opportunity for diversion so that they can participate in education program, or they can receive some case management, do something to make up to the community for whatever their crime might be. Maybe it was a small amount of marijuana or something minimal. Maybe write an essay, maybe write an apology letter. And at the end of that, if the child successfully completes, that is the end of that court case, and there is no record of that arrest.
So this youth that you mentioned had some kind of infraction, but because of Youth Aid Panel and your staff getting involved.
Yes, and his, I believe, was shoplifting. As many of them are. Retail theft is a huge reason why we get kids in. Low-level marijuana possession is a reason we get a number of kids in. Underage drinking sometimes. So really it's, maybe a fight between a couple of kids. So, and the district attorney's office has been able to expand that even to some of the school districts as well, to be able to offer the Youth Aid Panel intervention at the school level, so that we can avoid things like suspensions and expulsions. It really is a phenomenal program, and that's all depends on volunteers. The panel members are all volunteers.
But your staff is not.
Our staff is not, and that is all grant funded.
How many programs do you have?
Right now we have about 27. It's 6 different areas, so family support, health and wellness, senior services, substance abuse prevention, reentry and restorative justice, and then, of course, our housing programs. So we recently, last July, became one of the housing resource centers for Montgomery County. So helping those who are street homeless to enter housing and then be successfully housed. So for many of these people, this might be their first housing experience that's on their own. So helping them to be successful in that. And then to sustain it on their own after the fact. So it's really a rapid rehousing model with Montgomery County Your Way Home. And we try to help folks to become really independent and able to sustain their rent after about 6 to 9 months.
So interesting. And so it really get a better understanding of the longevity of your organization, of being so forward thinking and responding to the needs, like you're saying. Do you have any programs like that are out there percolating, or you don't know yet?
Right now, we don't know. We're constantly looking, and a lot of it is really depends on funding and the ability for that. Our newest program is Share Housing, which is a program that matches someone who wants to share their home. So a home host for a variety of reasons. Normally, it's a senior who needs some help around the house, needs some help in the kitchen, may need some light housework, chores, errands, and they are willing to share their home and give a room to someone who is willing to provide some services maybe around the house in exchange for.
And someone who would otherwise be unhoused?
Who would otherwise be unhoused. So
wow.
It's new for the county. We piloted it last June, July. It started. So we have about 20 matches of home hosts with home sharers. Variety of arrangements, but it really is kind of neat. We had an older man who was bedridden and needed to get turned a couple times during the night. And we had a young guy who was 25 who's in school for his graduate degree, needed housing. And the two of them are a match. And he performs that for him every night. He goes in and he helps him. And if he has to use the restroom, he helps him. And
so how does one get matched with that? That's fascinating. We've talked. I had no idea you guys did all these things. They're great programs.
And everyone is always surprised.
Yeah.
And there really is. The agency really does so much, and because the staff is phenomenal. But we do have a coordinator. His name is Tim Barr. So he does outreach events throughout the county, mainly
looking for both, or looking for the.
Our challenge really is finding home hosts. So finding someone who wants to share their home. We always have a waiting list of people who are looking to be a sharer. And unfortunately, that's just a reflection on the fact that we do have so many people that are housing unstable.
But what's the criteria? How do you know, honestly, they're not going to steal or mental health?
They really have to do a match. So there's a series of clearances that are done for both the potential sharer as well as the home host. To make sure that there's no major, criminal background or anything like that we need to be aware of. Our role is mainly, and I laugh because it's kind of like, if you have college-age children, that first year in the dorm can be brutal. If you don't know your roommate, and there's a lot of negotiation that has to take place. Well, imagine that with two people that are seniors. So there's a lot of mediation, a lot of negotiation, a lot of this person didn't clean up in the kitchen, and that was an expectation. And so our staff are really there to mediate the match. So to make
and
the
just
match.
to continue to support it
and
after.
to continue to support it after. Right. And that isn't those issues are ongoing. We do the inspection to make sure they have to have a dedicated bedroom. It can be a shared bath, can be shared living areas. Some matches, they really prescribe when those shared areas can be used. Others, it's more open-ended. So it really just depends on that particular match and what's going to meet their needs. But it's been an interesting ride.
I have to say, from feeding
one.
Pets to youth aid panel to now shared housing, that's really something.
It's been an interesting. It's been interesting to see. When they first came to me and staff came with the program idea, I thought, I don't know that we're going to get anyone that is going to have an interest in opening their home and sharing in that way. And I was pleasantly surprised that we do. We've had at least 20 matches, and which is amazing because the state has been doing it through the Pennsylvania Department of Aging for years, and Montgomery County has the most matches in the SHARE program of all the other counties right now.
When we talk about the kind of the theme of your 125 years in service of just responding to the needs. So the housing kind of crisis has become more prevalent in Montgomery County and this creative option.
It has. And that's the thing, is trying something new and different, and everything helps. So we were in the housing. We had been doing housing since 2013 with our Project Hope, which is our HIV/AIDS medical case management program. So that program is one of the longer standing programs of the agency, Meals on Wheels being our longest, which is about 55 years. And we have one volunteer who's been in that program for the entire 55 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's still in, and she's phenomenal. But Hope has been around since the 80s, since the beginning of that HIV epidemic. And we've been doing permanent supportive housing since 2013.
So I'm curious, like how you actually come to propose this shared housing. Is there a model somewhere else in the country? Like, how does that work? You get together as a team?
Well, that actually it's a program of the Pennsylvania Department on Aging, and they had piloted, I think about 6 years ago, out in like Pike County. Most of the counties that had piloted were out in the way western portion of the state. So about a year and a half ago, they had come and wanted some pilot sites in the southeastern part of the county. So it was actually our Jennifer Barnhart and our Office of Aging Services that expressed some interest in the program, and then put that out for an RFP. So the agency at that point had responded.
So did they bring it to like the leadership team and say, hey,
Our process in-house is our staff, whether that's direct staff or our program managers or our department directors, will get an idea or see an RFP and want to respond. And then they bring it to our admin team. We kick it around. We look at it in terms of, does it fit within the mission of the agency? Does it address the agency intended impact and the outcomes that we want to make? Is it a good fit for the organization? And if we determine that it is, then we usually will throw our hat in the ring. The other question around that too is it a duplication? We don't want to duplicate services. We don't want to step on the toes of providers that are doing things long term. That is definitely not our goal. But if we do think we can do something well and with quality, then we usually will pursue that opportunity.
So the reentry is one of the newer programs, but right now you're not immediately at this time kicking around a new program?
Well, we always are in reentry, and that always adjusts. So we did just begin, and that actually started in January, February, in partnership with the Montgomery County Office of Drug and Alcohol. We are doing an opioid response program. So we identify with Montgomery County Correctional Facilities Inmate Services. They work with us and identify inmates who are at risk or who came in with an opioid use disorder, who may be at risk for use upon release. So our staff go into the correctional facility and start working with folks really to do a reentry plan. And a lot of it's talking about what worked for them before. If they had been incarcerated previously, when they were released, what went well, what didn't go well, what are those factors that really lead to them using again, so that we can put a plan in place to hopefully, upon discharge, reduce those risk factors for not only recidivism, but also for overdose and for relapse in terms of their substance use issue. So we do a lot pre-release in the correctional facility. We are in the correctional facility 2 days a week. On Wednesdays, our staff person does a program called Parenting Inside Out, which is just what it pretty much says. It's parenting for children, for parents who want to reunify with their children upon release, and what are those skills and understanding they have to have and develop to make that transition back home successful. And then on Thursdays, we're doing a program called Thinking for a Change, which is also kind of a cognitive behavioral program that really prepares those for successful reentry. But in the meantime, we're also doing case management. So upon
It's
release,
just kind of this thread to follow in all different
and there
ways.
has to really be, because you really have to help be planful on the front end, but then provide a lot of support upon release, because those, I mean, and it's the thing, imagine, you've been in, you leave, and I can't imagine it at this point in time, but if somebody told me I have nothing and I have to start my life all over, and here's a bus token, you have no job, you have no house, you've burned your bridges with your family, you have been dealing with addiction issues, you might have a behavioral health, mental health concern, and you have to start over with no support. That's no wonder we have recidivism.
Right.
So our folks really are there. We know ahead of time when they're being released. They'll pick them up. They will have the housing arrangement already made before they come out. So we have threaded in the reentry initiative both the pre-release, the post-release, which we call critical time intervention case management. We have programs in the prison prior to release. And then we also have started last year, February, we got a grant from HUD to do reentry restart housing. So for those reentrants who are also homeless and don't have a housing plan, we are able to put them into some short-term housing for at least to get them on their feet, because we know you can't get employment, you can't get all these other things lined up if you don't have a roof over your head. So housing has been a priority for that population as well for the last year.
But it sounds like in this program, in addition to the others, which you mentioned, is the responsiveness of your staff, of your agency.
Absolutely. So, yeah, they always are looking for what is the gap, and if maybe somebody else can fill that gap, and that's great if they can. We'll make that outreach, we'll make that partnership. We will write other organizations into grants that we're writing if that's a service they provide. We don't have to be everything to everybody. What we do have to do is pull together those who can be. But if it is a gap and no one's doing it, then that's something that we know we have to kind of get those program development wheels turning and get that
with
developed.
Good staffing, good collaboration. So really just that consistency over, a century.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to honor or mark this big milestone?
Our big milestone, we are looking, and that's one of the things, and in talking with staff about how are we going to mark this milestone, we know that the past 125 years, haven't been great for many populations in this county and many marginalized and low-income communities and populations in the county. So we really want to use this milestone not so much to look past, but to look to the future. Who are we? What do we want to be? Who do we want to be when we grow up? What does the next rendition of family services look like? So a lot of that is, just in staff succession planning. But, we had our signature event. We have a Cocktails for a Cause event every year in the spring. This year, and it will be our one and only year, we are doing a golf outing on October 6th at the 1912 Club. That has actually turned out to be a lot more work than anticipated. This will be our only one as long as I'm executive director. But it will be an awesome event as well, because it's a phenomenal golf club over in Plymouth Meeting who has been a wonderful partner. So we're looking forward to that. We did do an agency video, which has been some time, so we're waiting on getting that cleaned up to be able to release. So a lot of events, but one of the things we really wanted to do in this 125 is recognize staff, try to do more for staff, either in terms of bonuses or just recognition, because we wouldn't be here for 125 years if it wasn't for the amazing
and
people
doing
who
something
work for
right
us.
where they stick around.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
and what if, as we work towards wrapping up, any personal professional goals for you in this role? I would think as you wind down your career, maybe not. I don't know
As
what's
I
next.
wind down, what really is for me is making sure that we're developing that next line of managers and department directors and those people who can take my place when I leave, that I know that they're going to drive the agency forward in the manner that it needs to be to continue service and be here for another 125 years. So that's my goal right now for my future is, keep us rolling, but also to develop that next line of staff.
It was a great conversation. I learned so much, and I thought I knew a lot about what you did.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's not that often we get to share what we do. And
it's really great
appreciate
stuff.
it.
So thank you for all the great work that you do and for taking the time to share with us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
TLC Connections is supported in part by the Lincoln Center for Family and Youth. Through education, counseling, coaching, and consulting, we empower people to make positive choices, meaningful connections, and transformational change. To learn more, visit thelincolncenter.com.